Medic Mind. Motivate, mentor, maximize.
So, let's move on to quantitative reasoning tutorial 9, adapting to test day. So we'll run through several of the factors that you'll experience on test day and how you can apply them to quantitative reasoning specifically. So first of all, the much talked about UKCAT calculator. So this is the design of the UKCAT calculator. You can have a look at it on the official UKCAT website and play around with it to see and get used to it. And there's several tips that we formulated based on our experience with this calculator. Firstly, there's no actual answer button on this calculator. So, if you're doing multi-step calculations, you want to write down the intermediate steps, as you won't have a record of the intermediate answers on your calculator. Alternatively, if you know how to use an M plus function, they do have this on the calculator. If you don't know what an M plus function is, you can simply watch a YouTube tutorial on it, and it should guide you step by step on how to use it. And effectively, what the M plus function allows you to do is use memory storage to effectively use the answer button in a different way. So have a look at it online if you have a chance, but if you find it confusing still, just assume there's no answer function and write down your answers and step-by-step calculations. Secondly, there's no power button on this calculator. Therefore, you want to try and save time wherever possible. For example, if you're doing 8 cubed, you could instead do 64 times 8, assuming that you know that 8 squared equals 64. This might sound quite minor, but a small step like this can really help you to save time, and you want to save time wherever possible for the UKCAT. Thirdly, when navigating, you can navigate by mouse or by using your keyboard. Therefore, have a go on the UKCAT website, practice it, and see what works better for you, using the mouse or using the keyboard. Fourthly, it takes time to use this calculator, and therefore, going back to tutorials 2, estimation versus precision, try and estimate wherever possible or use mental maths when you can. It might seem comfortable to always use the calculator for even the smallest and most easy calculations, but get into the habit of using mental maths if possible, because this will really save you time in the UKCAT. And remember, in the UKCAT, time is marks. Lastly, as we've mentioned, you can have a go with this calculator on the UKCAT website. During your practice, you should try and use the calculator on the website wherever possible, even when you're doing the Medic Mind questions in our books. However, obviously it's not always accessible to have the UKCAT website up with you, so if you have an iPhone or Samsung calculator, it's a lot more realistic than using a scientific calculator. Because if you use a scientific calculator throughout, your timing will be skewed and you won't be able to adapt to the slower calculator on test day. Secondly, the UKCAT whiteboard. So when you go for the test, you'll be given a whiteboard, and when you arrive, there's no harm asking for two. And when you use this whiteboard, you want to use it strategically. So firstly, as we said before, when you're doing multi-step calculations, you want to write down your intermediate steps, especially if you're struggling to use the M plus function. Secondly, when you do questions in a book, for example, let's say you're doing the Medic Mind book questions, and if you want to knock out A, you just put a cross through A. If you want to knock out B, you put a cross through B. However, when it comes to test day, you won't have a piece of paper to put a cross through. Therefore, it might be easy to forget which ones you crossed out when you reach halfway through a question. This is especially true for verbal reasoning. Imagine you're doing a type 2 statement question for verbal reasoning, and after 30 seconds, you've knocked out 2 of them. Whilst you're reading so much text, it might be very easy to forget which ones you've knocked out, and even more so when you're coming back to a question at the end of the section. Therefore, before you start the section, in your time before you start, it's very advisable to write down A, B, C, and D for every single question, and then as you go along, you can just knock them out on your whiteboard. This means you have a log of what you've knocked out, and it's especially useful if you come back to a question at the end, if you come back to a question which you flagged. Tip 3, write down an algebraic formula wherever possible, because it can really help to break down complex calculations and make them much simpler for you. Fourth, draw Venn diagrams wherever possible. If you get a question which is talking about different categories, such as the number of people studying geography, economics, and maths in a certain school, and the numbers overlapping, then it's typical of a Venn diagram question, so you want to draw a Venn diagram. And especially for decision making, which we'll see later on, Venn diagrams are a crucial part, so you want to draw them wherever possible. Lastly, we touched upon this in the verbal reasoning section. Once you've flagged your answers, you won't know which ones you flagged because they're a complete guess, and which ones you flagged because you were slightly unsure. So when it comes to the end of the section and you want to go back, you may want to first go to the ones which you were unsure about to make sure you've 100% got the marks, whereas other people might want to go to the ones that they completely guessed first. However, if you flagged many questions, you won't know which one's which. Therefore, it might be useful to write down G for guess and U for unsure whenever you want to flag a question. Or you could just flag all the ones that you completely guess, and any that you are unsure about, just jot down on your whiteboard so at the end of the section you know which one is which and you can decide appropriately which one you want to return to. So, reducing human error. When you do calculations and write things down on your whiteboard, if you have the same data on the monitor screen, it's a lot better to read the monitor screen than your data, because it's so much easier to make mistakes by reading your scribbles and misreading them. So it cuts out the possibility for human error by reading the slides. Next, checking answers. We touched upon this in tutorial 2 on estimation versus precision. Once you've done a question, it's very useful to do a quick sense check and make sure you've got the answer in the right region. You can do this by using the figures in the question to do a very sensible and quick estimation. And this makes sure you haven't done anything wrong, especially with your units. Even if your answer matches one of the choices, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do a sense check. For example, consider a multi-step calculation. If you make a mistake at step 1, it's very likely that the answer could be one of the choices. For example, for this example, if you make a mistake at step 1, you get answer A. If you make a mistake at step 2, you get answer B. If you make a mistake at step 3, you get answer C. And if you get all the steps correct, you get the correct answer D. This shows you how clever the UKCAT can be at tricking you out. Because if you get one of the answer choices, naturally you're going to feel more comfortable and assume that you have got the correct answer. However, even if you get one of the answer choices, still do a sense check to make sure you haven't drastically overestimated or underestimated the answer.
Thank you for watching this free Medic Mind tutorial. We aim to make UKCAT revision simple, visual, but most importantly, affordable. For £20 you can unlock all 150 tutorials in our online course. You can also buy our 6 expert UKCAT guides written by a teacher who scored 900 in 3 sections. Or you can have all 150 video tutorials, each of the 6 UKCAT books and a full classroom course for just £35.
Medic Mind. Motivate, mentor, maximize.